Hey, what's going on, everybody? Justin here, and in this video, I have a much more manageable pile of books than my previous one. If you want to go check it out, it's like 4 linear feet of modern history titles, but if that's your thing, definitely look at it. But this one we have 6 titles, so like I said, much more manageable, and they are my December TBR books, so the books I want to try to finish out the year with. About half of them are loose ends from things I've said I was going to read from earlier in the year, but let's just go ahead and get started. So I have 2 more classics that I'm trying to read. I set myself a goal of reading 5 specific classics, and these are 2 I guess I have to read in December if I want to get to them. And I do plan on starting this one today, and it's the Kalevala, which is the epic poem of Finland. It's in that kind of rich tradition of oral epic poetry, the Iliad and the Nibelungenlied and the Song of Roland and that kind of thing. From what I understand, I don't know too much about it. I do know Tolkien's story of Kullervo is heavily influenced by the Kalevala. This one is translated by Keith Bosley. And what I find interesting too, when I was reading a little bit on the Kalevala, it was kind of compiled not crazy long ago. I think it was in the mid 19th century, that an oral historian and linguist was able to put a compilation together of the Kalevala. I've heard really good things about it, and yeah, like I said, I don't really know too much other than that. I've been purposely trying to keep I guess the plot elements and kind of the things that happen to a minimum. So it's reading it for, obviously still reading it for the very first time, but I want to actually have the surprises and everything like that. And then the other classic that I told myself I should read, that I set a goal of, I said I've read 3 of them so far. These are the 2 remaining ones. We've got Emile Zola's The Fortune of the Rougons, which is the first book in his Rougon Marquart cycle. I've read one in college journal, which is probably one of his most famous works, but it's all about kind of the story of this, I think kind of the ill-gotten gains of this extended family, and kind of I think one side of the family is a little bit illicit and that kind of thing. I'm not 100% sure, but all the novels kind of are a little vaguely interconnected and that kind of thing, though I think they're all standalone as well. But they all take place during the second French Empire, in the mid to late 1800s. I think it's 1850s through the 1870s. I did really enjoy journal when I read it back in college, and I did not read a lot of fiction and stuff back then, just like I don't really anymore. So I'm kind of hoping maybe starting with book 1, just see how it goes. If I really enjoy it, maybe that'll make that as kind of a mini goal for the next couple of years, is finishing out that cycle. Next up, we do have some history books. So I was sent this one by Osprey. This is Mike Cole's Steel Lobsters, Crown, Commonwealth, and the Last Knights in England. Now, I found this one really cool. So during the English Civil War, apparently the parliamentary forces in 1600 still had a couple regiments of essentially fully armored knights, I think with handguns and that kind of thing. But when I say fully, I mean literal plate mail and everything, and this is pretty decently into kind of the age of gunpowder and firearms and everything. And it's sort of just the true story of kind of the the last hurrah of fully armored knights and that kind of thing. I can't remember exactly what the battle was. Roundaway Down, where they were, I think, routed pretty bad, and I think after that battle, everyone was kind of well, yeah, but that time period has kind of gone away, essentially. So I think I've read one of his other books. Michael, I think he's got a couple books on the ancient world as well, and I think I read his Legion versus Phalanx and thought that was pretty good as well. So thank you so much to Osprey for sending this over. And I guess it's not really a medieval history, but I feel like it's medieval tangent. But I will say, for a Historathon, quarter 3, which is the years 1500 to 1820, which this would fall into, is probably my weakest era at this point, so I feel that'll help a little bit. I don't know too much about the English Civil War either, so I think there'll be a lot of kind of introduction to that, because I think this was in kind of the first era of the English Civil War. Now on to a nature title. So we got Now Comes Good Sailing, Writers Reflect on Henry David Thoreau. And all I know is this is like, I think there's 27, if I remember correctly. I think it's 27 different like living authors and writers and journalists and stuff writing on, how Thoreau has like inspired them, or how they reflect on like Walden or Henry David Thoreau's like writings and that kind of thing. And to me, that just like sounded awesome. I think I picked this up during Princeton's latest sale, Princeton University Press's latest sale. And generally, I really enjoy what that press puts out. So I'm really hoping this essay collection, like overall, like when you're dealing with over 24 like authors, some are definitely going to be like kind of misses compared to the hits and stuff. But I'm hoping like, overall, the book like turns out quite well as like a good compilation. I really enjoy Ralph Waldo Emerson and Henry David Thoreau, and like kind of that transcendental nature movement and everything. So, like I said, just kind of like looking forward to seeing like what everyone else kind of thinks about, Thoreau and Walden and what have you. The other nature book I don't have quite yet. I bought it used. It's in the mail still, and it's Deep Water. The Ocean, The World in the Ocean, I think is the subtitle, by James Bradley. And from what I understand with this one is it's kind of a micro and macroscopic look at the world's oceans. So I think you're dealing with molecules and atoms like in some parts of the book, and then kind of like zooming way out to kind of like the global like oceanic like ecosystems and like like global migrations of different like species and all that kind of stuff. But apparently it's like the prose is supposed to be really lush and that kind of thing, which I do generally enjoy. There's only been a handful, I could probably maybe like 4 or 5 books that were in that kind of overly savory style that in nature writing that I haven't enjoyed. So like I said, I'm kind of looking forward. Robert McFarlane is a nature author that I really enjoy, and he had like a really nice blurb shout out for this book. So I'm really hoping it's kind of like in that vein, but we'll see how that goes when it gets here. And then lastly is one more book that I told myself I would read like literally I think back in like May or June or something like that. And it's A.C. Grayling's The History of Philosophy. This is a little bit of a longer one, so we'll see if we get to it. But this is apparently like one of the go-to books at this time period. That's kind of just like a general overview of world philosophy. What's interesting with this one is he does even talk about some of the Eastern philosophical traditions for a little bit in a couple different chapters, which I will say, like in most philosophy books, that are written in English and that kind of thing, like the Eastern traditions are like completely glossed over if it's not like analytic or continental philosophy there. So, like I said, just really looking forward to it. It's got great ratings. Pretty much everyone that I know that it's read it has said, yeah, it's like pretty good. I feel like it'll just be like a really good kind of brush up for me on a lot of this stuff. And I'm hoping that it's kind of like, once I read it, I can just say like, this is like the go-to book if you want to read about kind of like just the history of ideas of philosophy and that stuff like over time, and hopefully kind of like replacing like the Durant's story of philosophy in that kind of vein of thinking. So there you have it. Those are the 6 books that I'm going to try to read during the month of December. Let me know what your reading plans are for the end of the year. Like I said, I'm always interested in seeing what everyone else is up to and what they're reading, but whatever you decide to read in the month of December, always remember, read victoriously.